Good morning. My name is Leslie Williams and I am in San Diego, California. And this video is dedicated to a brief but descriptive explanation concerning what in part organized gang stalking expeditions do in reference to sensitization methods. Now, I'm going to give you an illustration. I'm going to try and make the description as brief as possible, but as descriptive as possible in reference to what sensitization is all about and how in part it is used. Now, I'm going to give you an illustration, a parable concerning, it's actually based on a true story. Go to Google and type in, excuse me, I'm eating a candy cane. The following is a description in reference to what they did to this one woman as a result of her being a target of organized gang stalking, and how they committed a brutal crime towards her in order to sensitize her to an object. Yes. And then the goal was to associate the object to the trauma, and then to get along her path to constantly remind her about the trauma, using the object as a stimulation to remind her about the trauma. And this is exactly what this story is based on. Now, the description concerning how they did this, it's called where they classically condition through association a stimuli. What is a stimuli? Well, you know how like when the Vietnam vets came back from the war, have you ever heard of how a Vietnam vet, when he hears a helicopter in the air back here in America, he'll be walking down the street or coming out of a store, and he will hear a helicopter up in the air. As a result, he's brought back to the day of when he was over in Vietnam in the midst of a really bad gun battle, okay, and helicopters were flying above. The helicopter became associated to a threatening situation in his mind as a result of him being in a battle over in Vietnam, okay? And this is what I mean. It's where the stimuli is the helicopter, but it's associated to a life-threatening situation, okay? Now that you're with me concerning that description, listen to this story. A girl was raped, and as she was being raped, a sock was shoved in her mouth, okay? Then what happened, the perpetrators who were directly responsible for the rape got along her path on subsequent days after the rape and threw socks along her routes everywhere she went. Yeah, at bus stops, on bus routes, they would talk about socks, or even possibly present a pair of socks out of their backpack. When she would be in stores, they would deliberately have employees of the stores walk up to her and say, "Is this your package of socks?" The whole goal was in reference to the actual rape, was to form the association in this woman's mind that the socks were associated to the rape because they were shoved in her mouth as she was being raped, and then to get along her routes and throw socks along her routes and introduce socks to her as much as possible, okay? The first few days after the rape, they actually got the parties who were directly responsible for the rape to do this, and then they just used strangers in the community to do it as well, to reinforce the socks to the trauma in reference to short and long-term memory. And this is why, in part, why when a person has been raped, and possibly if the rapist has been arrested, where the courts will try not to put the rape victim on the stand so they do not have to relive the experience. Well, this is one of the most heinous aspects and natures when it comes to organized gang stalking expeditions. And what they do is they basically do nothing but, through classically conditioning, through association, is make sure, it's called double binding in psychology circles. And what they do is basically commit a trauma, okay, which is victimization, and make sure that they pair with the trauma a visual stimuli or an audio stimuli, because as they were raping her, they could have been repeating certain words or phrases like, "Oh my God," "weird," "crazy," even "gang stalker," okay? And this is done to form the association in the victim's mind by pairing two things: the traumatic event, the rape, and then the socks, okay? So the socks could be used to remind her about the rape on subsequent days as a result of them purposely getting along her route to throw socks along her route to remind her about it, to intimidate her concerning going to the police concerning it, yes, and to make her feel re-victimized as a result of the actual trauma of the rape. And this is what is known as where they sensitize targets to either sounds, words, or phrases, okay, because they might make particular sounds when the crime is occurring, like the rape. They might say certain words or phrases as the rape is occurring, or they might present a visual stimuli, which was the socks. And then on subsequent days, get around that same woman and repeat the things that were associated to the trauma, like the socks. It's called classically conditioned double binding, okay, through association by pairing a stimuli, in this case the socks. It could be words, phrases, or particular types of sounds even, or a physical object, or a physical gesture even, okay? Like for instance, say if you're being raped, and as you're being raped by one person, a person that is associated to that person who's raping you is in the room while you're being raped, and while you're being raped, you're seeing that person that they're with do specific things, like put their hands to their face and mock you as you're being raped. Then what they'll do is have people get along your routes on subsequent days and repeat these certain physical gestures that you witnessed as you were being traumatized. It's called double binding through association that is directly associated to a trauma. And this is done in order to classically condition and reinforce neural pathways in reference to the actual initial trauma. And this is one of the most heinous aspects of organized gang stalking expeditions. What they're doing with me is they're literally getting along my route, okay? And through double binding and association tactics, they've already had me sensitized to specific words and phrases, physical gestures like putting your hands to your face, putting your finger to your face, then taking your finger down like this, okay, and like this, or putting your finger like this. Okay, they'll do this at public libraries I go to. Okay, they'll have them sit next to me and go like this as they're sitting next to me, or go like this as they're sitting there using a computer, because they're into crafted seating arrangements like you would not believe. Because the whole goal is to make sure they get around you in order to do these things to remind you about the traumatization. And I want to help you understand something. When a person is traumatized, whether it be through a brutal physical assault, a rape, or sequential threats that you might, another assault might occur towards you right after an assault has happened to you, they'll get along your routes and threaten you verbally through direct conversation methods that it's going to happen to you again. And while these threats are occurring, they'll double bind the threat with a physical gesture, and then have subsequent different people every day get along your route as a result of the tracking and surveillance that is attached to organized gang stalking, and had these different people, even using low-life looking people, to repeat the things that have been double binded. The association, like the physical gestures, like getting around you at a public library as a result of them knowing where you're at, and have people sit next to you deliberately and do these things to remind you about it. Because when a traumatization is occurring, your mind becomes disassociated, okay? Yes, these people are definitely 100% into psychological operations, and this is where the doctors are involved, the people who have educations and degrees concerning psychology, psychiatry, in reference to traumatization and people's, and the way that the brain stores traumas. Okay, they did their homework. And these things are done deliberately and intentionally, and what they try to do is associate things that they want to form in reference to the physical gestures or the words, the phrases, and even sounds, like specific ways of clearing your throat. Yes, believe it. I mean, as crazy as it sounds, these are the deliberate and criminal malice aforethought intentions behind these expeditions, to get you to remind you about the rape or the assault. And why is this done? Because every time you are reminded about a traumatization, your brain, as a result of hearing it, goes right back to the memory of the assault, okay? And it goes right back to the disassociated state that the mind remembers, that the mind was in as the traumatization was occurring, okay? Yes, that's why a lot of, when a person has been raped and the rapist has been arrested, that's one reason why civil, uncorrupted courts do not like to put the rape victim back on the stand, because they don't want them to relive the experience. And it's the same thing in reference to how a helicopter will bring a Vietnam veteran right back to the memory of when he was in a massive firefight over in Vietnam, and as he was experiencing this firefight, a helicopter was going by. The helicopter became associated to the extreme anticipation and life-threatening situation, okay? And they did their homework. So what they're doing towards me is a result of them knowing I know that I'm a victim of this crime, because I have undisputable, physical, tangible proof that I'm a victim of this crime. Look into the description of this YouTube video for a small tidbit of proof that I have that you'll be able to witness by looking at it and thoroughly, meticulously dissecting it, okay, in order for you to correlate and cross-reference the particulars concerning what's in the description, and as a result, you'll be able to see that I am a victim of this crime. And so what they're doing is they're basically getting around me and having the audacity to repeat the name of the crime that's happening to me on a non-stop basis everywhere I go. Yesterday, before I went to Best Buy, I was at a specific location. I made a video, okay, and I showed a picture of my cell phone, which showed the date and time, and I said, let's see if I said where I was going. I think I said where I was going, but I said I'm getting ready to go. Yeah, in fact, I did. And I said, let's see if I hear Gang Stalker once I get there. Now, I want you to listen to this. You got to listen to it right away. This is at Best Buy off of Villa La Jolla Plaza, and you're going to hear it right away because I have fast-forwarded the audio file right up until the seconds before it's said. I'm great, but actually I just made a boo-boo. I just paid for this one and this one, and I meant to buy.
Did you install the freaky on it?
Oh, wait a minute. I meant to buy the 8 GB instead of this one because this one's got that. Okay, I believe you caught that, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewind it just to make sure, so bear with me 1 second. It's exactly at 3 minutes and 52 seconds left into the file. So I want to make sure that you hear it right here. Okay, now I know that you heard Gang Stalker being said around me in Best Buy. Now that came from this digital tape recorder right here in the built-in memory on file on 3/08/2013. Okay, folder number 2, file number 19. The file length is 17 minutes and 34 seconds, and it was already set around me inside of Best Buy before that actual. But what they're doing at times is getting around me and saying it more from a distance, so this digital tape recorder doesn't clearly pick it up, but they say it just loud enough for me to hear it. Okay, and this is done because the word gang stalker or gang stalking has been classically conditioned and reinforced as a result of the repetition of how many times they have used it against me in my environments to remind me that I am a target of this crime. Okay? And what they'll do with organized gang stalking targets is they'll literally even, like say, like how I've mentioned to you about that girl being raped, excuse me, and a sock being shoved in her mouth as she was being raped, and then how they got along her path on subsequent days for 30 to 40 days in a row, multiple times each day, and would throw socks along her path. They would use the business community to approach her with packages of socks as she was in the business, like illustration, like a Walmart. She'd be in a Walmart, they would have an employee walk up to her and hand her a package of socks and say, "Did you forget these?" Every way that they could think of in order to remind her about the rape by constantly throwing socks along her route. The day of the rape, the day after the rape, the day after that, the day after that, the day after that, the day after that, everywhere she went. This was done to double bind through association to remind her about the actual traumatization. But then what they did after subsequent days, after they sensitized her to the socks, like say if they did it for 45 days straight, the last 25 days of those 45 days, they would not only throw the socks along her route to make sure she saw them, but as they were witnessing her seeing it, like say if this woman was walking up the street, they would walk by her, she'd be going one direction, they would walk towards her in reference to the direction she's walking into. They would walk past her and throw socks along her path about 5 feet before they passed her. And as they did it, they would do this. And this is done to classically condition a third stimuli to the disassociation of the original traumatization of the rape and the socks. Okay? And then they would do that for the next 40 days. Continue to throw socks along her path while doing this. And then she becomes classically conditioned to this. Yes. Then they would eventually drop the socks from the sensitization and then just do this and then double bind it also. Once they got her visual attention to this, they would then start doing this. And this is done to form new associations to the original trauma. Okay? Yes. So, with me, what they're doing is basically literally just getting around me and saying gang stalking, because originally when they started sensitizing me to the word gang stalker or gang stalking, they were also doing this before and after it was said. Or this. or patting the top of their head. Now, is sexual exploitation and sexual trauma attached to what originally happened to me? Look in the description of this YouTube video for multiple YouTube titles that you can copy and paste into YouTube. In fact, you can go to YouTube and type in "Learning Disabled Woman Exposes Direct Conversation Method." In order for you to be able to clearly see that these things are happening deliberately towards me. Now, you'll be able to hear them being caught, okay? But also make sure you look in the description of each YouTube video, because you're going to see cooperating material that correlates with what's caught in the host video that you'll be watching, for undisputable proof this crime is happening towards me everywhere I go. I have over 400 audio files of gang stalking being said around me in multiple locations over almost a year and a half time calendar duration, okay? Even at places 160 miles away from San Diego. I'm in San Diego, California. My name is Leslie Williams. I make these videos to inform, to expose the truth, and I'm here today to fellow American citizens to tell you USD, SDSU, and UCSD played a direct role in these gang stalking expeditions that occurred towards me here in San Diego, California, and they also 100% engaged in a falsified arrest at SDSU because I was exposing it online, and in cyber hacking, erasing emails and videos of proof that I had. Yes, cyber monitoring, what I was doing in reference to looking up lawyers and then possibly contacting them, or possibly possibly breaking into their office. So by the time I got there, they could say that lawyer that I was researching to go to doesn't no longer work there. Mary Frances Previs, 3115 4th Avenue. Is that what I experienced when I went down there on February 20th, 2013? Please look in the description of this YouTube video. Thank you.